This story is not a prophecy, unless you want to make it into one. We all know that Arthur is asleep under a hill somewhere, waiting to be woken by the spirit of Merlin when Britain is in her hour of direst need. On that day, Arthur and his men will be escorted down through the streets of Inniswitrin, past the gawping crowds, the clicking camera phones, the giggling, the pointing, the selfies. And then, as Arthur and his men eventually get through the crowds down to Pompal's Bridge, they will stare around in horror, for there is no lake. And without a lake, there is no lady. If there is no lady, where is the sword? For without Excalibur, Arthur cannot fight to defend Britain. But he will not despair. He will lean over the parapet of the bridge and call out, "My lady, I am Arthur Pendragon. Are you there? Do you still have the sword?" And the waters of the river Brue will stir, and the lady will rise up as clear as glass, her hair and her clothes like falling rain, and in her arms she will cradle Excalibur. But she will not offer it. Arthur will reach out his arms and say, "Lady, give it to me." But she will look at him and say, "Arthur, when I give you the sword, what will you do with it?" He will say, "I have sworn to defend Britain with my last drop of life's blood." She'll smile and say, "Yes, I understand that, but look, the sword is old and damaged. It needs to be remade. What will you do with it? Will you turn it into a sword or a ploughshare?" And Arthur will hesitate, remembering that when he was originally given the sword, Morgana had made him an exquisite scabbard. It still hung by his waist, but it was so worn out now, it wouldn't last much longer. He remembered sadly that when he'd been given it, Morgana had said, "Arthur, which do you prefer, the sword or the scabbard?" And Arthur had replied, "Oh, the sword, it's magnificent. It was swift, it was light, it sang through the air." What young man wouldn't choose the sword? Morgana had looked very sad and said, "If you had chosen the scabbard, your reign would have been one of peace. But because you chose the sword, you will have war all your years." He sighed. "It's too late to choose the scabbard, isn't it?" And the lady of the lake replied, "There are more ways to create peace. Think about it. Sword or ploughshare." She handed him the sword and said, "There is a blacksmith along the drove, the one that leads to Mere over there. Find him, and he will help you." And with that she just disappeared back into the river Brue, leaving only ripples in the sunlight. Arthur turned to where his men were surrounded by crowds, still pushing and shoving to get a closer look of what was happening. Arthur will stand in the midst of the crowd and bellow, "Silence!" Everyone will turn and stare. And Arthur will say, "I am Arthur Pendragon. I have been woken to save Britain in your hour of direst need. But Excalibur needs to be remade. It is broken. I need to know who the enemy is, how many men he has, where his camp is, what his demands are, so I know what sort of sword Excalibur must be remade into." The people will turn and stare at each other and shrug and say, "Well, there's nothing like that happening. There's no war as such. I mean, Trump and Putin and Netanyahu and Who knows, there's all sorts of people who could create wars, but not at the moment. Then someone shouted out, "Maybe they aren't, but we've got enough problems right here. I mean, look, there's those bloody immigrants and boat people." Someone else will shout, "And the people who are black and brown, we don't want them here." And someone else will shout, "Well, it's you reform voters." And someone else, "No, it's those hippie, lefty, green, woke people. We don't need them." Someone else will say, "It's the drug dealers. And there's thieves and crooks. And people stealing stuff from my garden and from my house. I just don't feel safe." And a little kiddie will say, "I'm hungry." And Arthur will look around and be horrified at what Britain has become. He will call his men and say, "I must take Excalibur to be looked at by a blacksmith. This is urgent. Some of you talk to the people. Find out what you can about what's going on. This makes no sense that neighbour should be so divided against neighbour and people should hate each other so much. And someone else, talk to them, find out what their commonality is, what they can agree on, what they all need and want and long for. I'll be back as soon as I can." And Arthur will turn and cross the road, but he hasn't seen much traffic before, and a huge red juggernaut will come bearing down on him. As Arthur crosses, the driver will stand on his squealing brakes and lean on his klaxon. "Na, na, 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 na." And Arthur will look up and wave his fist and say, "Bloody dragons, who let you out? I'll be after you next." And he will stride across the road and down the quiet drove towards Mere. And it won't be long before he will hear the tap, 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 tap of a blacksmith's hammer on an anvil. He will smell wood smoke, and soon he will come to a little stone building open at the front. It is the smithy. He can see a figure moving at the back, but whoever it is plunging hot metal into cold water. The place is filled with steam. Arthur will call out, "I need help, please. My sword is damaged. My name is Arthur Pendragon." The figure will move and call out, "And what sort of shape do you want the sword made into?" Arthur will reply, "To be honest, I don't know. I need advice." And the figure will come forward out of the steam. He is tall, very blonde, long hair, broad-shouldered, very Viking-looking. But he is lame. It's as if his knees don't work properly. He will consider Arthur and the sword, and take a goblet down from a shelf, and put it down in front of Arthur and say, "If in this goblet you see the bejewelled skull of your enemy's child, then you need me. I am Wayland, god of smithing and of vengeance. I can make your sword into the finest weapon ever made. It will cut body from soul. The merest scratch will destroy your enemy. If anyone tries to get vengeance on you, you will destroy them as soon as you look at them. You will reign with absolute authority forever and ever." And Arthur will be slightly shocked at this thought. He will look at the chalice and see indeed a bejewelled child's skull. And then he will remember the people who knelt before him on the battlefield, begging for their lives, for their wives, for their children, their only crime being fighting in the wrong enemy, and Arthur remembered killing them anyway. And then he will remember the young people he had brought into battle with him, and how few of them had ever returned. He will hesitate and say, "I'm not sure. Maybe I have the wrong smith. But before he can finish, Wayland will have shape-shifted into a short, square woman with a leather apron and a steady gaze. She will hold up the same chalice and say, If you see this as filled with healing herbs, then you need me. My name is Bridget. I am the goddess of healing and of blacksmithing. And again, before Arthur can speak, she will shapeshift into an elderly tonsured monk. He will be holding red-hot pliers. He'll snap them together and laugh and say, "And my name is Dunstan. I am renowned for sending the devil packing." And then he will pick up the same cup and offer it to Arthur again and say, "If in this cup you see a communion chalice, not necessarily just about religion, it's communion in community. It's not just about religion, it's about sharing food and drink with your neighbour, helping them when they're in need. And it's about saying sorry when you've done something wrong and trying again, trying to make things better, trying to help people who are different from yourself, trying to build hope and compassion." And Arthur will say, "Dunstan, I choose you, for this is what I think we need. I just hope the Lady Bridget will not be offended, for I have huge respect for her." The old man will laugh again and say, "Don't worry, my friend, we serve the same spirit. We often work together. Now show me that sword." Arthur will hand it over, and the old man will look at it this way and that and tut and shake his head and say, "This is unusable." He will hand it back and say, "Now you need to find a crucible." "But you've got one over there," Arthur will say. And the old man will say, "That is too small and too weak for something as huge as remaking Excalibur." What Excalibur has done may have been in the name of justice and saving Britain, but it's also done terrible deeds as well. Deeds that cannot be undone, they must be burned away in the crucible. Once I would have said the Holy Grail was powerful enough and the cauldron of Bran was big enough and strong enough, but neither exist anymore. So, take the sword, my friend. Go and find the right crucible and you will know what to do next. And in a blink of an eye, the old man will have gone. Arthur will be standing amongst a tumble-down stone wall, the ruins of the old smithy that once was. He will turn, feeling lost and alone and completely empty. When he had woken that morning, he had been full of the joys of battle and fighting for Britain and doing right and getting rid of the enemy, being a hero again. The magnificence of war and the fun of the fight was now gone. He was looking at war from the other side and dreading it. His head, which was normally so full of amazing ideas and excitement for life and for battle, was now an empty room with just a few dust motes. He walked slowly and despairingly back towards the crowd of people seated by the River Brue, and as he saw them, a tiny, tiny spark appeared in his head, just a sparkle of an idea. He got closer, he crossed the road a little more carefully, and he stood and he looked down at the people. His knights had arranged them in concentric circles as if they were sitting at a round table. And the spark inside Arthur's head began to grow. Lancelot and Gawain came over to him and said, "My lord, we've spoken to the people, and the enemy is not an enemy we've ever met before. The enemy is within. It's fear of each other. It's anger, it's hatred, it's not feeling safe. It's feeling used, it's feeling unloved, unwanted." And Bedivere will say, "But their commonality is they all want and need to be loved and accepted, each man, woman and child for who they are. Now that spark, that tiny flame in Arthur's head is now growing. Now it's not a burning fire, it's more like the brightness of a star. His head is full of it, he knows what to do. His head has become the crucible to get rid of old ideas and to be filled with light and new ideas. He will stride into the middle of the circle. He will raise Excalibur high and say, "I am Arthur Pendragon. I am your king. Now, if I get this sword remade, who would want to use it against your enemy?" Every hand shot up. But Arthur will hold on to the sword and say, "No, none of you shall have it. For if those of you who hate people who are of a different coloured skin, you will kill them. Anybody who hates people who are of a different faith or none, you will kill them. Anybody who hates people who've offended them or hurt them, you will kill them. And by the end of an hour, not one of you will be left alive. So, I, Arthur Pendragon, have decided that the fate of Excalibur is this. He will raise Excalibur very high and smash it down on a rock. It will shatter into 1,000,000 shards. The crowd will squeal and scream and jump back. But Arthur will pick one shard up and hold it high. The sun will shine on it so it's like a minute candle. And he will say there will be no more hatred or fear. I charge each of you, my subjects, to take one shard of Excalibur. Hold it in your hand every night and let your hands and heart and head become the crucible, burning away everything you regret during the day. And once that shard is clean, think of the Arwen, truth, love, justice, inspiration, creativity, changing things, hope, and commit that shard of Excalibur to become something useful to be used the next day. Something you can do to help somebody to change things, to make things different. And with that, Arthur will toss the hilt away and walk away, leaving the crowd gawping and staring and filled with amazement. But he will walk silently to Glastonbury Abbey, and there he will lie down on the grass in front of the high altar, and he will fall asleep next to his beloved Guinevere. Now, in reality, I have no idea whether Arthur is really asleep under a hill or not. It doesn't matter. But what does matter is that we all who believe in truth, hope, justice, creativity, inspiration, and changing things, that we, every night, take in our imaginations a shard of Excalibur in our hands, and in our hearts and minds we burn away and get rid of everything that didn't work, and we allow ourselves to be filled with the Arwen, so that tomorrow may be different, and our community is restored.